Good evening. Good evening. It is Monday, start of another amazing, beautiful week, and the start of possibilities and new starts. A lot of people don't like to wait till Mondays, but Mondays is the start of a new week. It's when a lot of 9 to 5ers work, and so it's just a start of new possibilities. And Mondays usually are dreadful. Everyone's like, oh, I got to go back to work. Oh, the weekend's over. It wasn't long enough. All very much true. But if we change our perspective and start looking at, okay, Mondays means new possibilities, then maybe Mondays won't suck so much for all of us. So that's just a little bit. So today what I want to talk about is the art of saying no and still being respected. I think one thing you'll notice if you look at all the videos I've done thus far, there's a lot of themes that run throughout all of these topics. And it makes sense because our lives are every aspect of our life is interconnected somehow, some way. And so a couple lives ago, when I said that, we have to really look at us as holistically as a whole person, because our life is interconnected. Sometimes we just forget, sometimes we don't think about it, but it is all interconnected. And so today, the art of saying no, I have talked about this, not specifically, but how hard it is when you're burnt out and overworked. But I think this is a topic, it seems like an easy topic, but a lot of us struggle with saying no, especially I think working moms and women in general, because we wear a lot of hats. Men wear a lot of hats too. But again, speaking from my personal perspective, we wear a lot of hats. Moms, wives, entrepreneurs, career women, students, and the main household, person comes to cooking, cleaning, kids. Again, that's not for every household, so this is not, a blanket statement. But for the most part, women wear many hats. And so I'll go over a couple points today to kind of help us move past not saying no or feeling like we can't say no because we won't be respected. So first, let's look at, why does it feel hard to say no? And I think, especially again, from a woman's perspective, many of us learned really early on in life that for us to be good, to be good mothers, good wives, good significant others, we had to be helpful, we had to be agreeable and accommodating. And we're always praised for putting ourselves last. Oh, you're so selfless. Oh, you do so much for so many other people. And so, we're constantly praised for doing for others. So to say no is kind of going against what we've been taught growing up. But, we have to understand that if we constantly say yes, then it'll catch up to us, like in my other video, and leads to burnout. So, if you can relate, say yes in the comments, whenever you watch this video, say yes, I can relate. And, as in our society, women are generally looked at as, the submissive in the relationship, or the submissive in work. When you think of CEOs of big companies, most people think of men, and, they think of women as supporters. And so for us women, it's so hard to just say no, because that is just not what we were taught growing up. We were taught to be agreeable, taught to say yes, taught to be a helper. That's just what we were taught. So when you think about saying no, it just is not a natural thing for most of us. And so it's really hard to say no, because then you're thinking of, well, I could be this, I could be that, or they could be thinking this. So that's sort of why it's hard for us to kind of say no, is because we grew up being taught to not say no. Obviously as kids, we're taught not to say no to our parents, but overall, women are usually taught to not be argumentative, not be difficult. So that's why, when you think about it, and if you have any other things that you can think of why is it hard for you to say no? In the past, now, why do you find it difficult to say no? Like my reason is just like I said, we were raised like that, but there's plenty of other reasons. So, drop in the comments, what are some reasons that it's difficult for you to say no? Secondly, I want to look at what is the cost of always saying yes? Again, this relates to another live that I did on burnout, but every time you say yes, you are starting to overcommit yourself. You are borrowing energy and time from something else. And that something else is normally you. It's normally us. We're normally like, oh, well, I don't need a nap, or I don't need to go to the nail place and get my nails done. I don't need a massage. I don't need to go by myself to have lunch, So because you're overcommitting yourself to other people's needs, wants, and desires, that eventually what is sacrificed is you. And this can look different in a lot of people. It could look like burnout. It could look like resentment. Listen, I am definitely someone who has felt resentful. Granted, like I said, my kids are my life, but there have been times where I was overwhelmed and I felt like I was doing it all. And most of it was not my husband's fault. He was deployed for a year. And so that was a year of me being by myself with the kids, being away from family. And so it was hard. So again, some situations are unavoidable, but some are not. It could look like doing things halfway. Now, like, okay, when my schedule was crazy, this is kind of, what it looked like for me. So we would do the laundry, but we wouldn't fold the laundry. Or the laundry would sit in the washing machine for like 2 days, and then we'd have to rerun it when we finally went to put something in there. It could look like, you take a shower, but you don't really do your hair. It could look like a lot of different things, but never really doing things to your full capacity because you only have the energy to do it halfway. And then I think the biggest thing is losing sight of your own goals. Not that you forget your goals, but when you stop thinking about them, they are in the very, very back of your mind. And like for me, I got my undergrad degree in 2012. And granted, this wasn't a degree I wanted, but I knew I wanted more in life. But my kids came first. My spouse came first. Everybody else came first before me. And so I just now, as all of you are aware, I just graduated with my master's. It's 2025 and I got my bachelor's in 2012. And so not that I lost sight of my goals, but they were in the very, very back of my mind and were not at the forefront. And I wasn't really doing anything to get to where I needed to be or wanted to be. And I still do, I find myself saying yes because of guilt. I find myself saying yes because I'm like, oh, well, I want to help them. I'm someone, I love to help other people. That's just naturally just who I am. But then later on, I find myself frustrated because then I'm like, snap. I'm helping all these other people accomplish their goals and mine is on the back burner because I'm helping everybody else and saying yes and not realizing that I'm overcommitting myself. And so there is a huge cost when you continually say yes and you don't say no. So have you ever, or do you remember a time when you regretted saying yes? Or do you remember a time when you said no and then felt guilty? Because that's another thing. Sometimes we say no and then feel guilty later and then go back and say yes. So, think about these things. Like when was the last time that you said no? And when was the last time that you said yes and then felt like, man, I should not have said yes? And what was the reason? Like, did you feel like overcommitted or did you feel like you only said yes out of guilt? And so now that we looked at, why is saying no hard, and what is the cost of saying yes to everything, now let's look at the mindset shift. So we feel this guilt. I've been talking about feeling guilty. But we have to look at it not as, no, I'm rejecting you, or I'm rejecting whatever it is you're asking. It's just honoring your boundaries. And that's something also I've talked about, is boundaries, that most of us have a hard time implementing, is boundaries. But we feel like if we say no, then we're rejecting somebody, we're hurting their feelings, or, the plethora of different things that could be going through your mind. But we have to change that mindset and shift it to, no, I'm not rejecting them. I'm just implementing the boundaries that I have set for myself and my life. And it's the way that you deliver it to people. You could tell them, I respect you enough to be honest. I respect myself enough to honor my limits. And so you have to really, again, just like mindset, it's all about how you deliver things, the tone, the words that you say. And so, yeah, sometimes we have to think a little bit more about what we're going to say, think before we speak. But it can make a huge difference, not just for you, but the people that you're interacting with. If they feel like, hey, she really just doesn't have the capacity, then they'll be more understanding. Whereas, as opposed to them thinking you're saying no just because you don't feel like helping them. We all have things going on in our life. So thinking about this mindset shift, what would your life look like if you only said yes to what truly felt aligned with you, your goals, and your life? Like, if you were able to start saying no to things that just did not align with where you were in your life, where you were trying to be in your life, or your values, if you just started saying no to things that just did not go with you, what would your life look like? Again, like in therapy, this is almost like the miracle question. What would your life look like if in therapy, it's like, if you didn't have this mental health diagnosis, what would your life look like? And so again, this is sort of the same type of question, just worded differently. The miracle question. What would your life look like if you only said yes to things that aligned with your goals, values, and future? What would your life look like? Like, really picture it. And put in the comments, like, what does your life look like when you envision only saying yes to things that align with you? And take a minute. Like, it's going to take a little bit of time for you to really envision that, because we're just in autopilot most of our life. So that's the mindset shift. And so the next thing I want to talk about is another thing I think a lot of us are guilty of, is how to say no without over-explaining. When we say no, we feel like we have to have this very long story on why we're saying no. And we have to realize that all of our no's do not require explanations. It's just like as parents, you tell your kids no, and they're like, why? Because I said so. And, most of the time kids are like, but that's not a reason. Why? Because I said so. And so, sometimes I give explanations if I feel like it's required for them to truly understand why I'm saying no, or, whatever it is at the moment. But my no doesn't always require an explanation. And so it makes me laugh, though, when I think about, when I tell my kids this, because I said so. But when we're dealing with other people, other adults, other professionals, we feel like no is not a good enough answer, and we have to say no because, or no but, whatever the reason is, but we feel like we need to explain ourselves. So why do we do that? Why do we feel like we need to explain ourselves to people that maybe we don't even interact with on a consistent basis? Or it could be a coworker, or it could be a client, it could be a friend, it could be whatever. But why do we always feel like we need to explain our no's? No's do not always require an explanation. Sometimes it's just no. And again, they don't have to be long explanations. Here's a couple of examples of, what you could say. Something just flew by my window. What you could say when you're saying no. I'm not able to do that right now. Easy, short, to the point. Thank you for asking, but I'm gonna have to pass. Or it could be like, that doesn't fit my current priorities. Whatever it is. But you see how those responses are short. It's not no, because we're not having this really long drawn out reason for why we're saying no. It's just no, not right now, or no, it just doesn't fit with my schedule, whatever. But we have to stop giving these long explanations. So when you're saying no, and the 3 examples I just gave, which one of those would feel natural for you to tell somebody? I'm not able to do that right now. Thank you for asking, but no, thank you. But I have to pass. That doesn't fit my current priorities. Which of those fit? Or is there another one that would feel more natural for you to tell somebody when it comes to no? Obviously, it's situational based, and the short answer is going to change. But what are some short answers to no that you would feel natural telling somebody? Now let's look at what are some other ways that you can say no respectfully. Because again, we're not trying to say no to sound rude or, whatever. This no is simply, it just doesn't fit. So here's a couple other sayings that could work with no that's still respectful. I appreciate you thinking of me. I'm not available right now, but I hope all goes well. Again, situational based, who knows what that could be in relation to, but it's respectful, says no. Another phrase to say no respectfully is, I'm flattered you asked, but I'm going to have to decline. Again, respectful, you're showing appreciation, but hey, this just doesn't work for me right now. And another one could be, this season or this time, whichever you want to say, is full for me right now, so I'm not really able to take that on. You see that sometimes with business owners online, social media. They're like, oh, I have 5 slots for people. I have 3 spots open for clients. And then they'll post a little while later, oh, those slots are taken. I'm completely booked. I'm not able to take anybody else because I'm full. Same thing, but in person. And so you have to practice saying things like this out loud, so then when the time comes, you're not like fumbling over your words or feel unsure of saying it because you're like, how is this really going to sound? Anything in life is all about practice and consistency. It's just about repetitiveness and doing the motions until it becomes natural for us. And that's everything in life. It doesn't matter what it is. There is this tree that is just, it keeps coming in the window, and I keep thinking it's like a bug or a bird flying. But, and so next I want to look at how to handle pushback, because let's be honest, even no matter how respectful we are with saying no, sometimes people are still going to push back and still try to get you to change your no to a yes. And it's even more likely for people you normally say yes to push back, because if they're used to you saying yes, when you finally say no, they're not going to take you seriously. They're going to be like, yeah, right. They're going to think you're joking, and they're going to try and change your no to a yes because they're used to you saying yes, or used to you saying no. Used to saying yes. I had it right the first time. They're used to you saying yes. So when they hear no, it's going to be a foreign word to them to hear from you. But you have to remember that even if they're pushing back, you can't allow that to make you feel guilty to change your yes or change your no to a yes. You can't allow it to make you feel guilty. And you have to understand that it doesn't make you wrong. A lot of times we feel like, oh, is that the wrong, should I have done it? Like, should I do it? We start to second guess ourselves. Stop doing that. Stop doing that. Go with your first instinct, your first, whatever your gut is telling you, go with that. Don't allow peer pressure to change your answer. Because let me tell you, peer pressure is not just for teens. Adults are peer pressured all the time, saying no to a yes. So don't allow peer pressure from anybody to change your no to a yes. Do not overcommit. Do not burn yourself out. It's all about respectfully saying no, so then you can keep your boundaries where you want them. And I think the other thing that a lot of us are guilty of is we want to give an answer right away. Sometimes we need to sit with this discomfort, this uncomfortable feeling of I'm about to tell this person no. Sit with the uncomfortableness. Sit with it and allow yourself to go through the emotions and to move from uncomfortable to, you know what, it is what it is. And I promise you, over time, it gets easier. And again, there are some people that are not confrontational. And if you're not a confrontational person, the word no is very difficult because you feel like you're going to deal with confrontation and you don't want to deal with it. Be uncomfortable and deal with the confrontation if there is one. But again, a lot of times we make it bigger in our minds than it really is. And lastly, what I want to talk about is what are the long-term benefits when you start to say no to things that are not aligned with your goals, your values, or your future. You start to notice you have more energy for what matters. That is the season I'm in. Now that I'm done with school, I'm done with clients and practicum. Again, I'm getting back into therapy, so I will have clients, but I have so much more energy. Now, granted, school aligned with my goals and my values of where I'm trying to go. So that's a little bit different. However, it was still very time consuming along with my full-time job and along with being a parent. So it was still a lot. So when I was able to take that off my plate, I have so much energy. Then you start to realize that relationships that you have are built on honesty, not resentment, not guilt, but true honesty, a foundation. And the other person will start to understand that things that you say are not to appease them. So if they ask you certain things, ask you your opinion, they're more likely to take your opinion for truth because they know that you are truthful, even in uncomfortable situations. And you start to trust yourself more. You start to realize that, hey, you know what? I'm in more control than I realized. Like, I'm allowed to say no and be okay with it, and others be okay with it, and still be respected and still be looked at as strong and helpful. Saying no does not mean people are going to think you're not helpful. They're not going to think you're selfish. So we have to stop thinking that. No does not mean other people are going to look at us any differently. Everyone has boundaries. Everyone has the cap that they have the ability to take on. And you are no different than the next person. So we have to learn to say no. We have to learn how to do it respectfully. And we have to learn how not to over-explain ourselves with the answer no. Just like you tell your kids if you're a parent, because I said so. Granted, you maybe don't want to say like that because that's not as respectful. But sometimes in your head, that's what you say, no, because I said so. And so if this topic spoke to you, if you have found it hard to say no for any of the 7 reasons I listed, or if any of the steps were helpful, or if you have tips and tricks for other people to start to learn to say no and be okay with it, drop it in the comments. If you're not following me, make sure you follow me because, like I said, I'll be coming on here more frequently with tips and tricks and other things, and hopefully help to show you guys that our life is intertwined. So we cannot just continuously focus on one area of our life. And I know right now that with the way the world is, the way the economy is, people are struggling. And so right now, money is on everybody's mind, but we cannot forget about other areas of our life, our mental health, our physical health, our emotional health. There's so many other aspects of us. And when you start to realize that all aspects of your life are intertwined somehow, some way, then you can really start to be like, okay, I need to take care of all of me, not just one part, but all of me. And hopefully this, resonate with you. Hopefully this got you to start thinking and really start looking at situations where maybe where you should have said no, but didn't. And in the future, this be something that pops up in your mind when a situation comes where you're wanting to say no, but feel like you have to say yes or being guilted into saying yes. Because listen, y'all are in control of your lives. We cannot be peer pressured. We are the authors of our stories. We are the designers of our stories. And we have to start taking more. Sorry, there was a nice old car that just went just came by. We have to take more control of our life and take the bull by the horns. And you'll see how much better life is when you start to really take the control of your life that you really do have, but sometimes we forget. Well, enjoy the rest of your night, the afternoon, the morning, wherever you guys are. Have a fabulous day. Have a healthy, nutritious dinner. Have a great night's sleep of 8 hours. And enjoy the rest of your week. And I will see y'all in a few days.